Welcome to the Parenting Roundabout podcast for the week of September 30th, 2019. And let's just stop and think, what happened to September? It's September 30th?
Honestly.
I am freaking out. Let me just take a breath here. Every week, we chat about the things parents are talking about, complaining about, and obsessing about right now. I'm Terry Morrow, and I'm here with Catherine Holeko.
Hello.
And Nicole Eridix.
Hi there.
This week, we're complaining about carpooling and obsessing about kids' achievements, plus taking a couple of breaks for an entertainment discussion and a recommendation roundup. But today, we're talking about classroom design. We got an email about a new survey from Corgan, a global architecture and design firm, that reveals that 98% of teachers would find teaching more enjoyable in a well-designed classroom, and almost all teachers cite classroom design as critical to their effectiveness, happiness, and overall student outcomes. You got to think that like 98% of all students would like to be in a well-designed classroom too, and I guarantee you that 110% of their mothers would like that to be the case.
Well, and also like what's with that 2%? They're like, who cares?
That's right. Is there a place where I can keep my snacks? I'm good. Yeah, I think I've had a teacher in that 2% once or twice. But anyway, so we thought we'd talk today about what classroom design means to us, good classroom design. Nicole as a former teacher and a parent, and Catherine and I as parents. Do we even think about it very much? I don't know. I do kind of, that's one of the reasons I like to go to a back to school night, is to, get a look at the place and find things to complain about. Well, find things to be happy about. I don't know. Because I ask my kids and they give me no details. So,
right.
But
this is actually a really good topic because it's something that I'm totally passionate about.
Yeah.
Because I feel like classroom design is everything. And not just in the sense of the feel-good aesthetic aspect of it, but good teachers use classroom design to actually manage the learning and the behavior.
Yes.
And different aspects of the kids. I mean, just the way you put the desks, or the way they're facing the window, or how close they are to the board, or are they in rows? Are they in groups? I mean, there's so many elements to classroom design. The colors on the wall, the airflow, like there's
how much stuff is on the wall. Sometimes there's too much.
Yeah. And how like dirty the classroom is, or how clean it, it has a total, the effect on kids, not just behavior, but learning and interest and engagement. That's a huge aspect of teaching, is just designing a space where kids, where you can facilitate learning in the day, right? And
yeah.
I mean, I go into some teachers' classrooms and there's nothing on the walls. There's, the desks are in rows, and I'm like, and right away, oh my gosh, the red flags are just like, what? The bells are, the alarms are going off, and yeah. Unless, of course, the teacher plans on having the kids put the stuff on the walls through the year, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
But classroom design is huge. I would have given anything to have a space that was pleasant.
Do schools have anybody who is responsible for that, or is it just each teacher is given a certain amount of stuff and then everybody just, conveys their little cube, box-shaped classroom however they wish?
There are some aspects, for example, the fire marshal, has some rules that you have to follow. And then, of course, if you live in an earthquake zone, there's other rules that have to follow with that. But for the most part, when you show up to a school, you're given an empty classroom with, enough desks for a certain amount of kids. You're usually left with the worst furniture in the building because furniture's been taken up. See, the longer you stay at a school, the better furniture you end up acquiring. Because as soon as the teacher leaves, you run in there and snap it up. Yeah. Or you tell the janitor or custodian, can you please go get that for me? So, yeah, you end up acquiring better things over time. But usually you start off with the worst of the worst, and then you use your own money, people, to go and decorate your classroom. You were maybe given $100 if that to do anything with. But So,
That's sad.
yeah, it's honestly, if we just used what we were given to teach kids, the public would be appalled.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how much I've spent.
That's
My kids' school was unique. Their elementary school, because it was a Montessori program.
Right.
So that's a whole different.
Yeah. Well, they value hands-on stuff, so they like buy manipulatives and
right. I mean, they set up the space differently. They have manipulatives that they have to have, and it's multi-age, so they have to have a range of things that work for kids of all different ages. I think I'm just thinking back to the classrooms that my kids were in, and they never had desks. They only had tables. So they could work in small groups, and they worked on the floor a lot. So they had to have, they had these little special rugs that they used on the floor kind of to define their workspace.
I had those too.
And that would be like a volunteer parent job, like take those rugs home and wash them.
Right.
So you'd see a parent with like a big laundry basket filled with rugs, like on a Friday. So, but I think it was, I mean, for lots of reasons, it was a good experience for my kids. And design, it obviously matters.
Yeah.
In any style of teaching, but in Montessori, of course, it is very relevant.
Yeah. For special ed classrooms, inclusion, certainly, and also just even self-contained classrooms, it's always kind of a challenge. I mean, I've certainly visited inclusion classrooms where there was a little cluster of desks in the back for the, special ed kids. And, that's a classroom design I commented on and got changed pretty quick.
Yeah.
But then I've also been in inclusion classrooms where it's extremely well done and extremely well designed and thought out, as rare as that is. Even in like a self-contained class that my son was in, I think I've talked about this here before, he needed a place where he could focus, and the other kids were bothered by them, or at least their mothers had complained that they were bothered by him. So he wound up in like a desk with a wall around it. I can't remember exactly now. I think it was bookcases and maybe blocks or something. He had this little office, but it was completely blocked off, which, is horrifying in one sense. But then also, you know what? He could just do whatever he needed to do and nobody cared. And that was useful, at least as a fallback position in a very bad situation with other parents. So, that was classroom design for sure. That was somebody designed that.
Yeah.
And I know there's been a story out about a kid with special needs who needed to have a quiet place in the classroom for his desk, and so they put it in the bathroom. Now, I have not read the details of that. If it was a bathroom in the classroom, I suspect it was. I know my son, at least in the early years, had bathrooms in the classroom because they had kids with health issues. But, the fact is, it's hard to create such a place. I know there was one point at which some kid in one of my son's classes, actually, maybe it was him, I can't remember, they had a play tent, and the kid would go sit in the play tent when they needed to have, a little meltdown or whatever. It's like, well, this is not ideal on many levels. And yet, what are you going to do? There needs to be, there's, in that box, there's no private place. There's no quiet place. What are you going to do? And so then I think bad decisions get made that all in isolation look horrifying. But when you think about what alternatives are there, and maybe somebody needs to design alternatives. Do we need to have classrooms that have more partitioning? Do we need to have cubicles in classrooms? Do we need to have, like they have in open offices, they have like a little phone booth in the corner or something?
Yeah. Because if you, how do you keep an eye on a kid then if they're in some secluded area.
Yeah, it's very, and yet I know that for some kids, it's very difficult to be at a table where other kids can touch and jostle them. Maybe not all day, but for part of the day, that would be, to do that all day for every subject, it would be difficult. And yet for other kids, that's exactly what they want. They need to be just in the mix of all the other kids. So I sympathize with teachers having to deal with all this. I don't always agree with them, and I certainly yelled at enough of them in my day.
I'm glad I wasn't one of those.
Sure,
you are very glad you were not one of those, Nicole. No, I was usually okay with the teachers. I had some child study team people who I'm sure had a little voodoo doll of me in their desk. They did not care for my choices.
Well, yeah, from a teacher's perspective, I mean, for those of us that really tried hard and tried to do our best, it was frustrating sometimes for parents not to really understand the extent to which we put ourselves into our job and
that's true.
Our time and our finances and our family life. But, then from the parent side of it, I can see just how justified, they are. And just actually quickly on a side note, the whole reason, as you know, my other day job includes running a blog called The Inclusive Class. Mm-hmm. And I actually started that blog because my daughter was in a grade 3 classroom and it was overcrowded with the teacher's stuff, like not even kids' stuff, but with the teacher's stuff. Mm-hmm. The desks were in super large groups. There was no light because the blinds were always closed. And it was just, and the teacher set the seating plan and said that's the way it's going to be for the rest of the year. And then, so of course my daughter, who has ADD, even without it, just any kid, I think, was really struggling and having a hard time. And he was, blaming this and blaming that. And, like she's not studying hard enough. She's not reading enough. She's not she's not paying attention enough. Well, no kidding.
Yeah.
Like who wants to be in that environment? And so I started thinking, how many teachers out there are relaying this information about people's kids when it's not something that they can control. It's their environment that they're in. Yeah. So, and that's kind of how the inclusive class came about. Cause I just thought, people need to have, be aware of what they can do to teach different kinds of learners, not just the one that will sit there and put up with that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So
one thing I tried to do, and maybe this is a good piece of advice for us to give to our listeners, if you have kids in school, when there were teachers that I liked, that I got along with, who seemed to just genuinely be trying, I would ask them, what do you need? What do you wish you had? I will go agitate for you. Let's work together. Sometimes in self-contained classrooms, there's nobody in that classroom, no parent in that classroom who can make it to PTA meetings. There's nobody who's, serving on school committees and having those contacts like people in regular classrooms did. So it's like, I will be that person. I will go to the PTA meeting and say, this is needed. I will talk to the principal. I will make a fuss with the child study team. Tell me what you need. And that was, I think, very helpful in a number of situations because they just feel like they're, sometimes the teachers feel if I don't do it myself, it's not going to get done, and I just can't. I have too many other things. So that might be something if you're not happy or if you're curious about things, just, when you go to a meeting with your child's teacher about your child, say, is there anything that you need for the classroom? Is there anything that you would like to change in the way things are, are done, depending on your relationship there. But, it's certainly something you need for the classroom is a good place to start because there's always something.
That's a good place and not threatening either because some teachers get uptight about that.
Yeah. And if you get friendly with the teacher and, you can talk with them off the record, you may find out some other things that you can do.
Yeah. Well, it certainly is a topic of importance.
Yes.
It definitely is an interesting study because I totally agree with it. So
topic of importance that nobody ever thinks about.
No, unless you're me and then you decide to start a blog.
There you go.
So that's it for today's round 1. Tune in tomorrow for our entertainment-themed round 2, and later in the week to find out what we're complaining about, obsessing about, and recommending right now. We're always interested in what you have to say, so drop us a comment on our website, our Facebook page, or Twitter, where you'll find us at Roundabout Chat.